some other components. We said we wanted one for the sidebar, one for the form on the right, and one for the middle, which is the list. Let's go ahead and make them. Not going to put much in them yet, but may as well make them. So, inside your source directory again, make a new file called S sidebar.js. We're going to have to import React from React. Going to make a new component. It's going to be stateless, functional. So const S sidebar equals arrow function. Before I even fill it out, I'm going to go down here and say export default sidebar so I don't forget. A habit that comes from having forgotten many times, just like my comma habit. And then this just needs to return. So we will return. I'll again go ahead and put parentheses in here, because it's going to be more than one line eventually. And I just want a div with a class of S sidebar. Now, remember emit, that's the feature that lets us expand HTML abbreviations. Let's see if it works inside JSX. That would be miraculous. Dot S sidebar, hit my shortcut for expansion. Holy smokes, it does. If it doesn't on yours, that's because you didn't do the configuration stuff that I said on the website. Notice it even said class name. It's that clever. Going out to the website, let's just look at that real quick. Tools, VS Code, probably under VS Code extensions. Maybe. Or it might be under key bindings. Where is it? Key bindings. There are my key bindings. Emmet. Okay, so here, to make sure Emmet will work with JSX files suffixed with .js, add the following lines to your VS Code settings. Code preferences settings. So I need to say Emmet include languages, JavaScript, JavaScript React, Emmet syntax profiles, JavaScript, JSX. So look under the tool sections under key bindings, scroll down to this section on Emmet, and you will have the same magic that I just demonstrated here, where you can use these abbreviations, and it'll expand it to JSX. And inside there, I will just put sidebar, again, just to make sure that it works. So then we want this stuff. I'm going to call that NoteList. So inside our source directory, I'm going to create a new file called N Note, L list. We'll camel case things, because that's how we would name the class. And since it's a React component, even though it isn't a class, we do capitalize it. NoteList.js. Inside here, import R React from the string lowercase React. Const N, L, NoteList equals an arrow function. Before I go any further, I go down here and export default NoteList, just to be sure I don't forget. All I need to do inside this arrow function is return some JSX. I'm going to make a div with a class of NoteList, camel case just like the name of the component itself. And inside here, I'm just going to write NoteList. Again, it's just so we can make sure that the thing does end up on the page. Yeah, unless you've changed it to a different keyboard shortcut, which I have because tab completion just does too many different things. What was yours? I think I changed Control spacebar. And we're going to make one more for this over here. I'm going to call that NoteForm, capital N, capital F. So inside the source directory, make a file, capital N, Note, capital F, form.js. Inside there, I import capital R React from the string lowercase react. Const NoteForm, capitalized the same way, equals an arrow function. Before I forget, I go to the bottom, export default NoteForm. Inside my arrow function, I just return some JSX. I'm going to make a div with a class NoteForm, capitalized the same way. Inside there, I'm just going to put the word NoteForm just to make sure that the darn thing does in fact render. Whoops. Now then, I've got these 3 new components that are not being used anywhere. So what's going to happen is in main, we're going to import all 3 of those and just put them all in there. So up here I have import React from React. I'm going to put a blank line in between my imports from node modules and my imports from my own files. I'm going to import all 3 of those. So import capital S sidebar from string dot slash sidebar. Don't need the .js. And because it was the default export, I could name it whatever I want here, but I don't want to name it something else because I want to know what I'm doing. So there's sidebar, import NoteList from ./NoteList, and import NoteForm from ./NoteForm. There they all are, and they've all got squigglies under them because I haven't used them yet. So instead of putting the word main here, I'm just going to put all 3 of those one right after the other. So, sidebar, self-closing tag, NoteForm, self-closing tag, NoteList first, right? Go sidebar, list, form, sidebar, note, list, note form in that order. My squigglies go away here. I save the page. And this should look really exciting now. Sidebar, note, list, note form, one on top of each other. But by golly, that's progress. We've got 3 components all showing up on the page. Never mind that they don't look like much. If you've got it, I'm going to commit, add, sidebar, NoteForm, NoteList, and NoteForm components. So our JSX can have things that just look like regular HTML elements, or they can have components that we've made. Just write them with tags either way. Piece o' cake. Questions? We good?